Hi there, guys. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for joining us. Got an article that are going to be looking at from UK Reloaded. It's the shameful recognition of a Palestinian state. But before we kind of like get into all of that, and some other headlines of the day, it's important that we just take a little bit of a moment here as to the events of yesterday. Very much like you, perhaps, I was also watching the entirety of Michael and the sort of like guys there over on Made It for Christ from start to finish. But I was a little bit sort of like perplexed, not because obviously the fact that we're still here, but more so why people are sort of like given up a little bit too early. It's almost as if the whole live started early and ended really early for me personally. Looking at the website renewedmoon.com, which is where you get to see the observations around the world as they, particularly come in. The moon actually wasn't sighted until literally about 7 p.m. In Jerusalem. So initially it was first sort of like identified in and around New Zealand. Then it was Australia and various parts of Australia, literally as that was literally moving west. And then at about 7 o'clock, Renewed Moon turned around and said, well, now we've officially got the sighting of the moon. So when things sort of like, happened and the sun set in Israel, there was a report saying it is reported that there was nothing to report, basically, no moon, no crescent, the two separate observers that are needed to verify and, sort of like the beginning of the Feast of Trumpets. So in my sort of like little understanding outside of whatever anybody else is doing, as per my normal high watch time that I will go through, I will literally start from them. As soon as that's been cited, then officially that can happen. In other situations in the past, I've learned that when, they haven't done that, we've always been out of joint. And especially when people have jumped the gun when it comes to the Abib and all this sort of stuff and the crops and all of this sort of thing relating to dates and how easy that is to get messed up. So as far as I'm personally concerned, sort of like Feast of Trumpets still on and still runs until 4:35. Over here in the UK. Israel is literally 2 hours ahead of us, so at 6:35, that'll be it for them, and then they will begin the 25th thereafter. So really, kind of like I was a little bit perplexed why they were starting so early with the live yesterday when they acknowledged straight away that the new moon hadn't been sighted. So I'm a bit like, hello, how is that all there? And then they wrapped it up before anything else, or just after the sort of like the situation. So we didn't have the midnight cry, and so that's just what I want you to just say. This is always my high watch time when it comes to the Feast of Trumpets, as is Pentecost, as is Ascension Day, as is Resurrection Day. So they're my four that I will always look at, as like being high watch times, but any day in a sense also. I've come to sort of like be a little bit more inclined to believe or suspect that, as per Habakkuk 2:3, the revelation awaits an appointed time, just seeing how orderly God is as well, but also not wanting to confine him in any way as to when it is that he wants to turn up. So aware that some people might be feeling really disappointed. Some people might have their sort of like, very young faith be shipwrecked or rocked and really tested at the moment. But I'm not seeing what the problem is, because we've still got where we're at, sort of like another 5 hours, really, in my calculations, left to Feast of Trumpets. And if we really are doing the whole kind of like high watch thing like I would ordinarily do, I really wouldn't be that really bothered with the first few hours of Feast of Trumpets. I'd be interested to see very much, the 10 virgins, whether the Lord will come at the midnight hour. So then I'd be getting interested at around 10 o'clock at night over here in the UK, thinking, okay, maybe something going on, and maybe kind of like half an hour either side of midnight to be really watching. And then, to be honest, the biggest sort of like push that I would be looking at would be the literal last moments of the Feast of Trumpets, with the blowing of the 100th blast, the last trump. So for me, I'm not sure why we're sort of like giving out or giving up. So yeah, I just saw Michael's live, very emotional. I get that. A lot of respect to those guys also that put out their, hearts on the sleeve. They're very open, very honest, very vulnerable, very real great set of people that they came in, and this is part and parcel of that. So personally, just for me, you do what you want to do, but still got 5 hours left to Feast of Trumpets. Anything can happen, and if not, then there's more time for us to be about the Father's business. There's more work that we need to be thinking about doing, in which case we are going to be doing that over here on our channel. So not to be dismissive from the outset as to what's actually happened or is happening at this particular moment in time, but just being a little bit mindful that sometimes I think we just jump the gun a little bit. It ain't over yet. And so just want you to sort of like point that out to you guys. Everybody looks at this very differently. Everyone has a different opinion. Just sharing with you my own opinion. It wasn't declared until 7 o'clock or just after 7 o'clock last night in Israel. So when they actually have the observation and then they report that to the Sanhedrin, then that's when you want to start Feast of Trumpets. Okay, until then, I'm not sure what's going on. So these apps and these global observations that they have around the world where they report in, yeah, seen it. That's all well and good, but it don't matter now until Israel has seen it. So the start of Feast of Trumpets was literally last night in my book, and it ends in about 5 hours. And then obviously if people want to then add the time difference to everything, we'll have the whole element of the 24th and whatever, then that's up to them. But for me personally, at kind of like 4:30 over here in the UK Greenwich Mean Time, then that's it. Okay, that's the end of this particular high watch, and then we just crack on. Should we be here? So wanted to sort that out. Didn't want to sort of like overlook it, sidestep it, and what have you. So that's all good. Okay. Seeing as we are here, there is work to be done. So today's article going to be looking at the very shameful recognition, okay, of a Palestinian state. Going to get into that, but want to read out some other headlines of the day for us, bringing us up to speed a little bit of what's happening over here. So the typhoon Magasa to make landfall in China's Guangdong basically today, seeing sort of like a lot of activity over in that side of the world when it comes to typhoons, when it comes to flooding, when it comes into earthquakes. Sort of some of the suspicions are are these natural, or are they man-made or man-manufactured, or is it the weaponizing of the weather? It's really hard nowadays when they have this sort of like technology to be thinking, is it really sort of like that? And then sadly, sometimes I think the church jumps the gun and said, oh yeah, it's God's judgment. It's like, nah, man, when the Lord does something, you're going to know about it. All right. And there's going to be completely different from what is ordinarily there or what can be manufactured and used against you. You're going to know when it's the Lord. So interesting article coming out there. Here we go. Sad times. California passes law giving state authority to set its own vaccine guidance. So forget the CDC, forget the FDA, forget all of the sort of like liability issues. California Governor Gavin Newsom, you remember that guy, Gavin Newsom? That was the guy who was having a joygasm when literally LA was on fire, and he was like getting so glee about, the prospect of his smart city and everything of that sort. He could not contain his joy, absolutely repugnant. Last week, he was saying that they've signed a law granting the state the authority to set its own vaccine guidance based on the recommendations of professional organizations, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, rather than on the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and their recommendations. That's a little bit of progress, but just see what's really going on here. Now, all of a sudden, people are saying, well, we're not going to be signing up to the World Health Organization treaty. America's literally opted out of that. And now look what's going to be happening. That's even more damaging, isn't it? I think. We're going to be tying into this with Palestine in a moment. This is what is repugnant. Okay, Hamas terrorists murder 3 Palestinians in Gaza for collaborating with Israel in sickening public execution in front of a cheering crowd. 3 Palestinians accused of collaborating with Israel were executed by masked Hamas terrorists in front of a cheering crowd in Gaza recently, all whilst they're having discussions and debates and votes on these guys having their own state. This is what that's going to be. Disgusting. We're gonna approach that in a little moment. As US nears TikTok deal with China, the communist regime cracks down on online youth evangelism. Well, they were doing it over here with Bible Gateway. Can't get that over in the UK, apparently. Oh no, that's far too sort of like violent content for us Brits to be having. Unbelievable. Following a phone call between President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday, reports suggest that the two countries are on the cusp of a deal to approve US ownership of the controversial social media app TikTok. The development comes as reports are emerging from China indicating that the communist regime is engaging in a new crackdown against the online activities of pastors and youth evangelization efforts. Absolutely, the godlessness of this. We're seeing some things relating, we're going to cover it in a moment, about YouTube, and apparently it's going to be going back to its old days of freedom of speech. Please tell that to our algorithms, our shadow banning, our blacklisting. You know, unbelievable. And this is when it gets really dark and dodgy. We've covered this before, haven't we, guys, this week? Starmer's digital ID. Here's how it unfolded. Do not give in to Papers, Please dystopia. The following are reports related to what led Adolf Keir Starmer to feel emboldened to impose digital IDs in the UK against the will of the people. We're talking about against the will of the people. There's also articles coming out that saying that 9 out of 10 Brits over here do not support a Palestinian state, yet still they're proceeding with this. People will not be surprised that Starmer is attempting to hoodwink the public using the excuse of uncontrolled illegal immigration. It's absolutely abomination. This is what I was praying about this morning. I was like, Lord, I'm sad and I'm gutted that we're not out of here yet, but there's still time. That's all right. Okay, I'm not sweating it none. But what I am really sort of like sweating is what this evil demonic beast system is now going to be doing. All right, because seriously, something this way comes to a dramatic degree that I personally believe it will change the entire landscape. Talking like something like a 9/11 false flag, black swan event. Something is going to kick off and it will just change absolutely everything and it will never go back. That's what's in my spirit. That's where I'm getting fretful, because I'm constantly looking at my enemy, constantly seeing where they are operating, what it is that they're up to. And these are those such said impositions. It only takes like 1 or 2 nukes, or say 3 nukes, to be sort of like, you know, put in and around the globe. And then all of a sudden, oh no, because of like, you know, the contamination, you've got to have all these vaccines that will just kill the remaining lot of us all off. Or if not, you'll have to have these IDs and then we can implement all of this dystopia. People are really quick to forget. It was 24 years ago that, you know, planes flew into, you know, the World Trade Centers, and that being an inside job as well. People seem to really forget about that. People also seem to be forgetting about the October 7th and the hostages and the barbarity of Hamas, and the fact that, you know, they're a part of the political system. So you imagine having a Palestinian state and then having like these heads of state as Hamas terrorists, like what they're doing now. It's unbelievable. This is what Starmer wants to be literally pushing and ushering in without the people's consent. People were messaging me over the course of time saying, where can I sign up to this UK petition to actually say we don't want that? And when I sent it to them, there was like 50,000. Well, when I mentioned it to you, there was 50,000 of them. Now that's just crept right up, doubled. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants this government in office. And we want a general election. Can't have it. We don't want to be a part of Brexit. Tough, you're joining it. You know what I mean? And now we're coming up with these digital IDs, the Fabian Marxists, the fascists. These guys literally, like I've been saying, please see our community posts. All right, when you have a logo like the WEF that has 666, that's worrying. When you have CERN, you have 666, that's worrying. And where else that is literally decorated as well. But when you have 143, you know, members of parliament, all in the Labour Party, that are Fabian Marxists, fascists, and their logo, okay, to this secret, oh, we're so secret society, the Fabian Society, it has the logo of a wolf in sheep's clothing. They are incredibly dangerous. Please see our videos relating to this, because these guys do not care about democracy. They don't care about everything. And this is why you've had 2 visits in such a short period of time when it comes to the US and the UK meeting up with the king and then the prime minister with Trump. Because the US and the UK, out of all the nations in the world, are the most patriotic, the most fierce and loyal. If you can break those 2 nations apart and you just remove their identity, their national sovereignty, flood it all with, sort of immigration and use that as a way to really steal everything, get it all set up for the Club of Rome's 10 kingdoms, or should we really be saying the Prophet Daniel's end time 10 kingdoms? Okay, and then stir all of that up. That's why it's happening, because Britons really are incredibly patriotic. I mean, I'm patriotic. I hate this earth, but I love the country that the Lord's placed me in. I served when I was in the armed forces. You have an inherent pride in being all of that. Very aware of the blessings of being a part of a society. But this is what they're trying to literally water down and take away from people, trying to ban people wearing flags or parading those, trying to destroy everything. And you just listen to some of the most magnificent songs, right? When it comes to anthems like Jerusalem, the land of hope and glory as another. These absolutely phenomenal patriotic songs. It's like all of a sudden you're going to start, attacking the last night at the proms when people, kind of like, it's part of British heritage. America just have their own celebrations and their own elements of pride. But this is what it is all about, trying to crush this nation. And people are standing up against it. And it's to the point where it's a case of they are being so blatant, they are being so, sort of disregarding of stealth, that everyone's really noticing what's going on, but nothing's being done. You write to your MP, it's like, yeah, we don't care. We're not going to respond to you. We want your name. Give me your name and address, you dissenter, Dan. When I wrote to my MP saying, look, I am not happy about you guys voting, okay, for a Palestinian state. That's not something that I agree with. And I needed to do something for myself, not to just prove to God that, hey, if you're going to take out this country and put, heaping rough coals all over everything, please avoid me and my house, because I'm not standing up for this. And I'm stood against it. But this is what we're having, that digital ID. Please, guys, I implore you, please see our community posts and our videos pertaining to that. And if you're a Brit, please see the video that is titled Brit Card. Okay, there you can have a really good opportunity to see what this is really going to entail. Do not get these digital IDs. Face the fines, face the alienation and exclusion from society, or if you've got to make adjustments, so be it. I'm prepared for that. Back still with the UK government proposed definition of Islamophobia is dangerous and divisive. It should be scrapped entirely. Well, Shadow Equalities Minister Claire Coutinho has strongly criticised Labour's plan to introduce a state-sanctioned definition of Islamophobia, warning it could grant grooming gangs impunity, which would be the first time, would it? And intensify a culture of censorship. Well, never mind. That hinders necessary discussions on issues like Muslim grooming and rape gangs, gender equality and Islamic extremism. All trying to protect these terrorists and this evil Islamic ideology. Going to cover some of that in a moment. Before we do, former vaccine developer, the rollout of the COVID vaccines was reckless, I'd say. She's saying here, I have spent my whole professional career trying to discover and develop new medicines, including vaccines. Shame. If nothing else, I know what good and bad medicines look like, he says. Now, the vaccine injured and their families are left to pick up the pieces. Yes, it's all well and good, isn't it? After you've jabbed 5.65 billion people with more than one booster and everything of that sort. Yeah, it's all well and good coming out of it and say, oh, no. We're sorry, our bad. Why? So you can do this all again and regain our trust? No, we haven't forgotten. Seriously, we are so forgetful of the atrocities of what they've done in government towards us as a people. The tragedy is that it was all self-inflicted through nothing less than a carefully crafted and fabricated illusion of a deadly pandemic that actually never was. Excuse me. So some interesting article headlines coming out there. Just some more here. Well, this is when it gets a little bit sort of like crazy. Elon Musk's father accused of sexual abuse by 5 children and step children. One to miss. And this is what I do. I only want to read this one out and just point out something to you guys, right? Kamala Harris admits she discarded Pete Buttigieg, whatever his name is, as a running mate because he's gay. That's not the thing. Is that when you're standing on a podium trying to sort of like go for, you know, the failed sort of like presidential candidate that she went for, you do not stand on that stage and say, oh yeah, when we get depopulation and we, you know, kill you all off. People are like, can you imagine that? Going up and, you know, wanting to be put in office. It's like, yeah, I need to kill all of you guys because there's far too many of you. I don't like any of you. When we do all of this, please applaud me. Please applaud the fact that I want to kill you all under the pretense that we all live in an overpopulated sort of like environment and planet. Please also see our live that we did exposing that, and our pictures that we've got in our community posts, you know, obliterating that very argument. But here you go, isn't it? People wanting these positions of authority, lying through their teeth as they are when it comes to what it is that they're going to be giving you in a manifesto, just so they can get you your vote, so they can just kill you. And then Trump yesterday, when he was, you know, speaking at the UN, look, Trump says European countries are going to hell because of migration. Unbelievable, isn't it? This is the whole point. It's to ruin national sovereignty and identity of all these countries. You're going to be seeing it, but you've got to get the UK to kneel, and you've got to get the Americans down with the program before you can roll it out to everybody else. You get those 2 bad boys, and it's all going to be tickety-boo for you for the rest of the other 8 kingdoms. Here we are. We were saying it. We alluded to it. Google admits political censorship on YouTube, vows to restore free speech. Hilarious. I was on the phone to my bank yesterday because Google decided to take £80 out of my bank account again without my consent. Don't have anything other than a free Gmail, but still taking money out of my account. You know, do you know what I mean? Thieves. Apparently, it admits to political censorship on YouTube and vows to restore freedom of speech. Forget the political censorship. What about the religious exclusion that you're doing to Christian channels? How you failed, in a sense, when it comes to YouTube, all right, not keeping these places safe. When it comes to all the Nigerian hackers, all those that want to impersonate, all of the porn sites that we've all had. Turning around and saying that our content is so violent, is so extreme, that you have to censor it and remove it. That none of y'all can have a fair argument when it comes to evidence and us asking questions or posing those or giving you the information for yourselves, that you have to censor us. But yet you're happy to promote all of those that comply, that bow down, that bend down to your community and their demonic guidelines. That's not okay. That's not freedom of speech. So apparently Google has promised to restore YouTube accounts that had been banned for political speech. Fine. I should have another seven channels restored to me then. And all of the, you know, thousands of videos and pictures and memes and articles and everything. If they're really saying that they're going to be restoring it, bet you they do not. So, in a letter to House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan on Tuesday, the tech giant also admitted that the Biden administration had made things the way that they were. It's unbelievable when it comes to what is actually being used against us. You know, talking about, oh no, we're going to protect Islam, and we don't want to have Islamophobia and all this sort of stuff. No one's protecting Christians. No one's like, you know, sort of like has a problem with the amount of blasphemy that I'm seeing on channels in and around. How they want to misuse the Holy Spirit's name, put in words after the word holy. I mean, if you're not saying spirit after the word holy, then you're blaspheming. It's as simple as that. You don't use another name at all in that particular way. But no one's standing up for Christianity. No one's standing up against our one non-negotiable of what it is that we really can and can't say. People haven't really, you know, been pushing back on enough, saying, well, what about us as a people group? I've got a meme that I found that I'm going to be putting in the community post after our live, and it's got like 2 doors, and one whole door is like Free Palestine, and you got like, you know, all of them being queued out, waiting to go in, and then you got another one which is like, you know, murdered Nigerian Christians, and no one's there because no one wants to care about these. No one wants to report on the actual atrocities of Christians being persecuted, being marginalized, being alienated and excluded, being so attacked. And it's so public as well, the mocking and the scoffing and the taunting and the absolute evil against Christianity. None of these guys would have the courage to go and do that with Islam. Ask Charlie. Do you know what I mean? That was literally it, isn't it? But we're not standing up for our own rights. I read those out to you the other day when it comes to our unalienable human rights, so that you would have them as part of your knowledge base, your understanding, things that you actually had, and that you weren't prepared to lose some of those. If you get these digital IDs, you're going to lose that freedom. It's going to be tied to a digital wallet, your vaccination status. Then all of a sudden it'll be CBDC's social credit score. We are to obey God, not man, or its policies, or its practices, or its institutions in any way, shape, or form. That includes offices of government that are evil and corrupt. We must be separate from it, guys. Still here, astonishingly, with the UK, and then I'll check in with you guys and see where you're at. Okay, UK school tells 14-year-olds to read a book blaming them for their white skin. A UK secondary school has been forced to scrap a book from its curriculum. Good, I suggest you do 90% of all of that, after it sparked a furious backlash from parents who accused it of brainwashing and promoting white guilt. Do you see what they're trying to do? You try and, manipulate and coerce the younger generation in the schools by lying about what's on the curriculum, getting children to be thinking that they come from monkeys. Really? Because I can't see, some sort of like, Planet of the Apes, hustings of negotiation with all of those that, are actually of the evolutionary nonsense. But literally turning around and making children literally feel that way. And this is what gets into young minds, and they end up being distorted as they grow older. And it's so awful, lying to children like this, twisting them, making them feel guilty for what, now having white skin? Wow. Wasn't like that in my day. I was the only colored face in my school. Wasn't like that at all. And my mum was really, really good. She started calling me the same names that was like, sort of like being told to me at school. And I was going absolutely mental at her. And she says, and then all of a sudden she said, "Nah, sit down. When you walk into a room, you're going to be the only colored face in that. You are not a minority, son. You are a majority. 2/3 of this world are non-white. So you go in there and you represent, and you walk with your head held high." And ever since then, I've had that. And there's an inherentness about our identity, our culture, where it is that we're from. Same to you here, weren't we? I'm happy and I'm proud to be British. But I've also got an Indian heritage. I've never been to India. I've never set foot there deliberately, because I knew if I'd ever go there, I'd see the poverty and I'd never come back. I wouldn't be able to turn a blind eye to it. So that's the reason. And this is where God has chosen to raise me. So it's really important when it comes to our identities, our value systems, our ethoses. This is why God was really clear when it came to Saul and taking the spoils from those that he defeated in battle. He didn't want anything pertaining to their way of life, their ideology, their cultures, their rituals, their practices. Didn't want any of that whatsoever. Didn't want them to be sort of like manipulated. Didn't want this cross-culturing and merging together with the races. Didn't want that. Because the Lord knew that it would dilute and water down that very identity. I'm mixed race, but I can tell you this, that if I wasn't mixed race myself, I wouldn't have married a white woman. I wouldn't have been the one that wanted to dilute that. Call me narrow-minded or not, I don't care. But that would have been something that I would have wanted to have preserved. But it's so easy to do, isn't it? It's not just that. It's just like, the whitewashing of people's brains as well, making them feel guilty about being white, making them feel guilty for being proud about their country, having the value systems that we have, and these evil people that are literally destroying everything that has been built up over the years. And that's what I'm hoping, that, you know, the Lord, when he comes back in his great power and glory, following on from our live yesterday, is that he will just utter 2 words: be restored. Not great reset, nothing like that, but be restored. All of this evil technology, all of this digital public infrastructure, all of the masks, all of the sort of like brain waves, all of the frequencies, all of the satellites, all of the spying, all of the evil, all of the demonic, everything pertaining to violence and death is all gone, all destroyed, eradicated. As he restores everything. This is what we're crying out for. It's not just, you know, to be in his presence. That's one thing. But the other thing is as well to have his kingdom come. His will be done, his way, not the way of these guys that follow Lucifer, follow death, follow the father of lies, who is nothing but a liar, thief, and murderer. And they are following his, you know, sort of like will to the letter. As no doubt they're having sort of like, you know, behind the scenes show and tells of like, you know, the antichrist that isn't allowed to be revealed until the first seal gets popped, giving them all of these orders. And we're the ones that are seeing this beast system rise. We are the ones, guys, that was recorded in Daniel and in John in the Revelation, that they were told to seal it up. We get the honor and the privilege to expose in this particular way the beast system, the antichrist system rising. But to live underneath that regime without also our being rescued is the conflict, is the battle, is the discipline. So we've got to be persistent, and we've got to be consistent in doing all of this, no matter how it is that we're feeling, no matter what we're struggling with in our lives, to continue to be fighting until the very, very, very end, the very last minutes. Either our collective last minutes or individually, personally for us, as we seek our Lord coming to get us. We fight to the very, very end, and we stand up against all of this collectively. But we're at the point now where it doesn't matter if it's collective. It doesn't matter if you get 3+ million people marching through the streets of London, screaming out against the tyrannies of government. Doesn't matter how many times they've had petitions in the millions also crying for another general election. Doesn't matter that the country doesn't want to have digital IDs, doesn't want its tyranny, doesn't want to be sprayed and poisoned overhead, doesn't want the farming industries and the fishing industries to be absolutely pulverized to pulp. This is what we want to stand up for. So in as much as my writing to my MP saying I am not in agreement or accord with you wanting to literally, you know, turn against the people that God's placed on my heart, which is the nation of Israel. Not impressed with what she does all the time. No, not at all. But there she is nevertheless, because that's on the Father's heart. And they're still a part of all of that. But in as much as I've wrote that letter and I've done my little bit to appease my own conscience, it ain't enough. Just as much as I could be doing this for the next 50 odd years and keep doing it, it's still not enough. We have power literally at the moment over very, very little. And we've just got to kind of like get that squared away in our mind and just make our own decisions every single day to just carry on exposing evil, standing out against it, not turning away from it, not being avoidant, not giving it the pleasure of thinking it can defeat us. So there's those articles. All right. Oh, we're going to get into this big article in a moment coming out from UK Reloaded. But I would like to see what's on, how y'all are doing. Hi, staff. Hi there. Bless you. Hi, Sherry. Thank you for being here, dear sis. Hi, Alison. None but love. Hi, Sub-Zero. Good morning. Bless you guys. Thank you for being here. You guys all checking in. Mate, Sub-Zero, we're happy to have you with us. All right. Happy and blessed to have your company. All that the Lord brings in, the Lord brings in who he will. And that's always been our thing. You know, we're really blessed by that. Welcome, Rebecca. God bless you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Sherry, just our mods and our team do an amazing job and just loving you and that. I was speaking to Sherry yesterday on the phone saying, look, man, we're going to be doubling our work ethic if we are here for longer. Do you know what I mean? It's like 4.5 hours, literally, until the end of Feast of Trumpets, really. So, you know, who really knows? But yeah, absolutely, just amazing sort of like supports, you know, guys that I have here that really serve the Lord. Really, I'm blessed to have in and amongst me. Really, really blessed with the quality and the generosity of the team as well, with all that they do. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, shout out to those guys. Hi there, Mike. Good to see you, mate. Much love to you. Hi there, daughter of Ishakar. Hi, Laura. Bless you. Thanks for being here. Hi, sister Aiko. Ah, bless you. Hi, Hebrews 12:29. Hold fast to your faith, brothers and sisters. Stay strong in the Lord and the power of his might, standing firm in the knowledge of his word. Absolutely. Amen. Absolutely. Okay, so guys, I want to take us to another resource, which is the purpose of this video. It's important that we give you as much news information as we can as it comes in. All right, but want to be really focusing on this. Okay, the shameful recognition of a Palestinian state. I'm going to be reading out some things here, guys, that some of you might find a little bit upsetting, but I'm not really going to care about that, to be honest with you. I'm going to say it for what it really truly is. When people are really turning around and saying free Palestine, it's really a code for kill the Jews. All right, Palestinians are the first people in history to kidnap an 8-month-old baby and have support. Forensic evidence confirms that Kafur and Ariel Bibas were two little children. Hostages were first choked to death by Palestinians with their bare hands. Their little bodies were then mutilated with rocks to simulate death by bombardment. Release of this information was approved by Yarden Bibas, who has asked to make sure the entire world knows how brutally his children were slaughtered by the terrorists. We need to stop calling the Palestinians the victims, because victims don't hold hostages. Victims don't murder 1,200 innocent people, and victims don't torture, rape, and murder. Victims don't start wars, and victims don't celebrate death. Victims don't burn people alive. Just stating the obvious here. So how and why are we even bothering negotiating with terrorism? Well, there's only one way, in my opinion, to negotiate with terrorists. Step one, blow them to pieces. And this is what we've been saying about the vote here, guys, coming out from the Telegraph. Nearly 9 out of 10 Britons do not back Starmer's Palestinian recognition. And it's an unconditional. So don't worry about, you know, all of the murdering of individuals that you've done. Doesn't matter about the hate that you've got going on there. Just give them, just reward terrorism and Hamas and give them their own state. If your religion promotes killing non-believers, beating women, punishing rape victims, or selling your daughters as wives at the age of 12, you're not praying to the God above, you're praying to the one below. Sorry, not sorry. So the shameful recognition of a Palestinian state. Well, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia have announced that they will recognize a Palestinian state. They cloaked the move in the language of peace and justice, speaking of reviving the two-state solution, of affirming dignity, of bringing balance to diplomacy, but leaving aside the absurdity of recognizing a state that does not exist. Strip away the platitudes and the truth is unavoidable. This was not diplomacy, but surrender. It was not a triumph of principle, but a groveling concession to terror and domestic identity politics. Recognition does not reward peace, it rewards bloodshed. It does not strengthen moderation, it strengthens Hamas. It does not prepare the ground for coexistence, it feeds the desire for more massacres, more rockets, and more dead civilians. Worse still, it reveals the moral bankruptcy of Western leaders who now make foreign policy not according to justice, security, or reason, but according to the demands of their most aggressive voting blocs. So let us be clear. Hamas and Fatah have never wanted a state beside Israel. They want Israel gone. Recognition now is not a gesture of peace. It is a declaration that terror works, that massacres yield results, and that the West has neither memory nor spine. These pusillanimous politicians that shame us all still mumble the fantasy that Palestinians seek a state living side by side with Israel. It's a lie, and it's a dangerous one. Hamas says it openly. All of Israel is occupied territory. From the river to the sea, their charter states that Palestinians must be liberated. And their method of liberation is murder, stabbings, rockets, bus bombs, the slaughter of families in their homes. This is not a state in waiting. It is a death cult armed to the teeth. And Fatah, the supposedly moderate factions ruling the West Bank, its record is scarcely better. Yes, its diplomats speak in English of two states, but in Arabic, the maps in classrooms erase Israel. The television broadcasts glorify terrorists, and the stipends flow steadily to the families of martyrs who murdered Jews. Fatah has rejected every serious offer of statehood, not because the offers were insufficient, but because accepting them meant accepting Israel's right to exist. If Palestinians truly wanted their own state beside Israel, they would already have it. They were offered one in 1947, again in 2000, again in 2008. Every time, the answer was the same. No state is acceptable if it means Israel survives. That is the truth. The recognition charade ignores. The claim that recognition will bring peace is an insult to common sense. Hamas massacres Israelis. Fatah glorifies terrorists. Western governments respond by handing out the prize of statehood. What lesson does that teach? Simple. Murder works. Terror works. Burn enough buses, butcher enough teenagers at a rave, and eventually Western leaders will come crawling with recognition papers in hand. By calling Palestine a state, the West flips reality on its head. Israel's defensive blockades becomes acts of aggression. Counter-terror strikes become attacks on a sovereign neighbor. Every act of self-preservation will be paraded before the UN as a war crime. Israel is placed in a diplomatic chokehold, punished not for aggression, but for refusing to lie down and die. And of course, by recognizing Palestine, they lose what little influence they have on Israel, making the whole thing an idiotic charade. If peace was really what they wanted. And do not think that this will just stop at Israel's borders. The message will be heard in Bradford, Berlin, Toronto, Sydney. Militancy pays. Every Islamist radical festering in European suburbs will see recognition as vindication. Every Jew in the diaspora will feel less and less safe. Synagogues, schools, and ordinary families will be targeted while politicians wring their hands and blame tensions on the far right. Recognition abroad is recruitment propaganda at home. Today's diplomatic gesture is tomorrow's knife attack in a London street or a car ramming in Paris. Why then did the UK, Canada, and Australia do it? Do they truly believe Hamas and Fatah will lay down arms and embrace peace because of a Western signature? Need to put the crack pipe down if they believe that there now. Of course not. The reason is more cynical, more squalid. Nowhere is it clearer than in Britain. The Labour parties know that its electoral future rests heavily on the Muslim votes. In city after city, Birmingham, Bradford, and the London boroughs, Muslim populations are large, easily led, vocal, and overwhelmingly pro-Palestinian. For Labour, recognition is not foreign policy, it is voter outreach. Adolf Starmer did not recognize Palestinians to help Israelis or Palestinians. He did it to shore up support among a bloc Labour believes it cannot win without. It is a politics of appeasement, no different in essence from the 30s. Sacrifice someone else's security to keep your own voters happy. Let them ticking off the Lord God. In Canada and Australia, the calculation is subtler, but the principle is the same. Progressive parties obsessed with identity politics pander to growing Muslim communities and to activist elites who view recognition as a badge of moral superiority. Substance be damned, symbolism wins headlines and votes. And so foreign policy becomes hostage to demography. Instead of defending allies, deterring terror, or upholding moral clarity, Western leaders bend the knee to the Islamic zealots. Recognition of Palestine is not an act of justice, but of political cowardice. The cowardice of leaders more afraid of losing urban constituencies than of rewarding terrorism. Recognition is worse than naive. It is a betrayal. It betrays Israel, the one democracy in the region surrounded by enemies who daily threaten its destruction. It betrays Jews everywhere, who will now face the emboldened rage of radicals who believe violence is validated. It betrays the very idea of peace, which requires compromise, honesty, and mutual recognition, not the unilateral elevation of those who reject all three. And it betrays us, the citizens, by reducing great democracies to client states of woke identity politics. Its perverted ideology matters more than that of truth, and terror is rewarded if it comes wrapped in enough slogans. This is not recognition. It is capitulation. It is the Western establishment announcing to the world that it will appease terrorists and their supporters, and that it is ready to sacrifice its allies and its own citizens to the false gods of globalism and demographic appeasement. Recognition of Palestine by the UK, Canada, and Australia is not a step towards peace. It is a leap into darkness. It tells Hamas and Fatah, your dream of erasing Israel is alive. It tells terrorists everywhere, kill enough Jews and the world will reward you. It tells Muslims in Western capitals, you are a bloc to be appeased, not citizens to be integrated. The result will not be peace, but more terror, more rockets on Israeli cities, more knife attacks on European streets, more dead children, Jewish and Arab alike, sacrificed on the altar of globalist treachery. The UK, Canada, and Australia have not recognized Palestine. They have recognized terror. I'll put that article in the video description box there for you guys. Okay, see how you're saying, then we'll. Absolutely. Thank you for putting up the Israeli flags, sis. I want to finish with some scripture, guys, with your permission. Isaiah 5:20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Proverbs 8:13. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil, pride and arrogance, and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. Romans 12:21. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Psalm 23:4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Ephesians 6:12. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities. And a lot of people will turn around and say, oh, it's principalities and powers. We always miss this part of it. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. I'd like to finish with some gospel verses, if I may. Acts 4:12. And there is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. Allah ain't going to do that for you. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Ephesians 2:12. Remember that you were at that time separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. Ephesians 1:13. In him you also, when you heard the word of truth, the gospel of your salvation, and believed in him, were sealed with the promised Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay there, guys. Just want to say a big thank you out to our moderators and keeping this a safe space for us, guys. I'm going to be putting in a thumbnail for this particular live. The article coming out from UK Reloaded. I did change the title of that. It was initially the shameful recognition of a state that does not exist and does not want to exist. Didn't really want to put that in. I'm just going to leave it as it is for our particular live. The shameful recognition of a Palestinian state. Going to put that in the description box there for you, and then also afterwards some pictures for you in the community post with some other videos that have been made, not me just talking in this particular way, in and around the apparent two-state solution. As we were saying before in the beginning of this live, guys, we're literally looking at 4 hours literally, and what is that, 4 hours and sort of like 7 minutes left of the Feast of Trumpets. Pray tell that we do hear the cry of command and the trumpet blast. Should obviously we be given a little bit more time, then we will be at it and on it again tomorrow. And come Sunday, taking Saturday off, we should see that we're going to be doing a lot more lives each day, maybe a couple each day, with more posts, more headlines, and us really fighting and pushing hard till whatever end is planned. So God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for the pleasure of your company, and we'll talk again soon. All right.